afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another edition of our Condo Insider that is done by Hawaii Council of Community Associations, also known as HCCA. So today we're going to talk about our upcoming Board of Director training. It is our 5th year of doing this training. We started it in 2018. So we've done a little revamping on how we're doing it. So we're going to talk about our Board of Director training that's coming up in July. So I'll see you in a bit. Hey, good afternoon. Thank you again for joining us today. We're going to talk about our Hawaii Council's upcoming Board of Director training that is going to be held at the Oahu Country Club. It's on July, it's 2 Saturdays. Based upon the responses last year from our surveys, everybody thought it was really too much for a full day. So everybody suggested to break it up into 2 days. So it's going to be 2 Saturdays from 9 till about 2:30. There are going to be some refreshments as well, so everybody will keep fresh. But we're going to talk a little bit about why we should be taking Board of Director training. So I'm not sure if any of you read Civil Beat, but Civil Beat has gaining in popularity with a lot of people. But on their May 3rd article, there was an article about a condo and some issues. So let's kind of start off with some basics. So according to the stats from DCCA, there's about 1,826 condo associations, and they represent collectively about 173,000 units in Hawaii, and that was their 2021 data. Again, that was from DCCA. I was able to find CAI they did a 2022 Hawaii Community Associations fact and figures. And they state that there are approximately 397 Hawaii residents that live in about 135,000 homes in more than 2,000 community associations. So we have to remember, what is it like living in a community associations? So community associations, when you buy into it, or even if you rent, there are rules. There's do's and don'ts. Most commonly, they're called bylaws, house rules, and then you have your declarations. And some of them might have what's commonly known as CC&Rs. About the maintaining of your property, you have to have certain type of grass or certain type of plants where they can and cannot be done, but they're all most commonly known as governing documents. So when an individual purchases these units, they are given those documents by the owner. The owner has to provide those documents. If you have a tenant coming in, if you're going to rent it out, the tenant is obligated and needs to abide by the same rules as well. So we all have to live within the same rules. And when you talk about the Board of Directors, they are voted in by the ownership. And these communities, these little condo communities, they're like little businesses, and they need to be operated in accordance with all the governing documents. And that includes any kind of city, state, and federal laws or any kind of ordinances. So just because you might say, well, we're a private community, like a city and county ordinance is that the curbing in the front has to be maintained. So you can't have weeds growing out and things of that nature. And if there's major cracks, you're pretty much obligated to report that to the city so that they can deal with that. But it should be free of weeds and overgrowth, things of that nature. So we still have to comply with all of those. And the board has to remember that they need to approach their fiduciary responsibility obligations like on a business approach, because they have to handle the upkeep and the maintenance and the repairs, the day-to-day operations of the property. So again, each director has a fiduciary obligation to the association or the community, and they also have to remember they have to act in the best interests of the community that they serve. And it sometimes can be really hard as a board of director because you have to make tough decisions, especially the financial ones are usually the hardest ones to deal with. Nobody likes to raise maintenance fees, but sometimes you don't have a choice. Even if you lived in a single family home, you still have to put money aside for the repairs. Like your roof has only a certain lifespan. Just like in a condo, that roof has only X amount of lifespan. So you have to put money away for those repairs. And sometimes people will do just little cheap repairs or what I call Band-Aid repairs. sometimes they work for a little while, but then you got to still put money away because it's only a temporary fix. And sometimes that temporary fix sometimes might be even worse than what it was before. So everybody needs to really be cognizant of that. Like I told one person, it's like your car, something's wrong with it. You kind of fix it a little bit, gets you going, then it gets worse over time and you're not dealing with it. And it's to the point where it just completely breaks down. You have to give up and buy a new car, or you're having to do a major repair that could be thousands of dollars. So sometimes I kind of tell people you have to think about it that way when it comes to maintaining the property. There's a lot to know for board of directors, especially for some of the ones that are coming in new to being a board. There's a lot to know about operating a property of any kind. I've owned condos since the 1990s. And even today, I'm still learning new things, new approaches, or different approaches on certain issues like dealing with owners and tenants. But the whole bottom line is you have to be open for discussion. You have to be open to listen to what they say, or at least listen to what they say, hear their side of it, because you might not be seeing it from another side of the view, and sometimes it might be a little crazy what they're saying, but sometimes it might have a little bit of merit. But I always try to come in the middle, and in those kind of things. So, and I always like hearing from people from condo boards or even owners that in their community, they kind of they don't really spy on each other, but they kind of know each other's routines. They kind of like keep watch on each other. There was one where there was a sudden emergency of a neighbor that got taken by ambulance to the hospital, and that person lived by themselves. But the owners took it upon themselves to kind of just keep watch on that person's property. They just kind of like put the newspaper in and then make sure that the mailbox was overstuffed. They would just kind of made sure that like some things were just kept normal until the owner actually came home. And those are the sense of community that you really want to instill as a board member. I said we want to operate it as a business. You can't be a board where, think about a business where your boss is just mean and just don't want to hear it. And the mentality there is you don't bark up that tree. You do what the boss says, and that's it. You kind of really don't want to have that approach, because you're just alienating everybody. So each year at the legislature, there's new bills that are introduced by consumer protection committees on both the House and the Senate side. And a lot of those bills are introduced in response to citizens of Hawaii complaints or concerns that they have brought to the attention of their respective either House or Senator, House of Representative or Senator. So they create some of these new laws. Some of the laws, they'll create it, but then it changes over time through amendments and things of that nature. And also, some of the laws that were introduced can be dealing with the changing times. So like during the pandemic, there were some new laws that had to be created to deal with the pandemic. And one of them was to be able to move to be able to hold meetings during Zoom or something similar to that. Because previous to that, there was nothing in there. So sometimes laws are created because we have to change to the current situations that are happening now. But one of the big things is the concern of the legislature on the volume of complaints regarding board of directors. And oftentimes they will lead to lawsuits. I had checked with an insurance agent, and I asked her, I said, over the past 10 years, would you say lawsuits against condo boards have doubled or tripled, or what number would you guess? And it has increased. She wouldn't really say it was doubled, because there's some of the lawsuits deal with not necessarily boards. It deals with some other issues that wouldn't be counted into that lawsuit against board members. It had to do with something else. So we're talking about in 10 years that lawsuits have at least gone up by 50%, and that's a lot. And that affects all of us. It increases our own insurance coverages as well. So we need to really make sure that everybody's educated with the basics of 514B. It's not expected that you're going to know everything off the bat, and that's why we're doing a training, and we provide a little booklet that during the training you can take notes. You can always refer back to it. It's going to have the complete 514B statute in it, so you can always have it to refer back. Mine, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and even my book, I've got little Post-its and little tabs inside the book that stick out. It kind of looks really gross, but those are pages that I keep referring to, so I always have little notes on it. So with the training, it really hopefully will help some of these condo boards to stay out of the courtrooms. And again, also, not only just the courtrooms, but these boards have to also realize that mediation is a mandatory component in 514B. So a lot of times the mediation will help prevent that lawsuit from happening. But if a board just simply says, no, we're not going to, you're just kind of like walking into that lawsuit door, because that's the first step that you need to take. And you have to engage in that mediation. Every year, there's also bills introduced. Again, even this year, there were several introduced about making board members to take mandatory education. There's always a fight back. Several years ago, and I want to say like maybe 5 or 10 years ago, I remember there was a point in time where a lot of condos were saying that they couldn't get people to serve on the board. So at that time, when the issue came up about education, kind of like we pushed back because we're like, we need people to serve on the board. There were some that were operating without a full board. They were allowed 7. They maybe had like 5. Some had only 3. So we want homeowners to serve as on the board and be involved in their property, but we also want them to follow the rules, to stay within the line, stay within the box. Self-governance. Some people take it out of context when you actually Google it and read about what self-governance means in encyclopedia, Investopedia, those kind of things. It's self-governance, but you still have a set of rules that you have to comply with. You have to take those rules and that be your guiding principles based upon that. Self-governance doesn't mean that just because you're the president, you can do whatever you want. You still have to comply with fair housing, civil rights, your condo documents, your 514B, your bylaws, your declarations. You still have to be on that same page. So you just can't go on a tangent and be like, well, I'm the president, I can do whatever I want, which I've heard from a lot of people on their, when they talk about their boards. I've heard that quite a bit. So for this year, again, we're holding our board of director training. And if you want to pull up the speaker slide. So our speakers in July, are going to be several industry attorneys. We have Jane Sugimura, who's also the president of Hawaii Council. She's been the president forever. We have Christopher Shea Goodwin. He is also a condo attorney. We have Laree McGuire with Porter McGuire and Keokona. She's been in the industry a long, long time. And we have, for the insurance side, we have Savio that's going to give us a segment about the importance of insurance and the types of insurance that we need, and also about claims. And then this year, we have added in about labor laws, because there has been some issues regarding resident managers and labor. Like, technically, sometimes they say they're 24/7. How do you equate their pay? And then even just employees. How do you document when an employee is not doing their job? Things of that nature. Every condo should have an employee manual also. So John's going to talk a little bit about that. But in our board of director training, we're also going to cover the basics. So what is a condominium? What is a planned community association? There's a difference between the two, and they're governed under different statutes. And also their compliance with state law, federal laws, and also city and county ordinances. The homeowner's rights to participate. We really want owners to participate, give them an opportunity to say their piece. Sometimes they just want to be heard, and then they're fine, and one of the big issues that's still impacting a lot of boards is they're still having discussions and decisions outside of a board meeting setting. They're doing it via email, which is not allowed in 514B. It's statute 125A. Because if you're making a decision, you're preventing homeowner participation in that decision making. We're going to talk about annual meetings, the proxies and elections, the process, the yearly budget and reserves, because there's been some changes in the laws about that started in 2023. Again, about the insurance requirements, your compliance to maintain and upkeep the property. So everybody's usually pretty good about maintaining their property, but it also extends out to the curbing, according to the city and county ordinance. But those are important things that everybody needs to know. I mean, I was surprised to hear about someone is telling me that they were pressure washing their sidewalk, and I go, why? You have to do that? And they're like, yeah, we're supposed to. It's part of our property all the way to the curb. And I was like, wow, I never even knew that, but it does apply. We're going to talk a little bit about contracts, and even in the contracts, the insurance requirements for those contractors. You would not believe the stuff that they need, a contractor needs on their insurance coverage. I mean, to the point where it extends to the vehicle coverage. Also, their wage when someone's injured, that part of it has to also be included. And then we're going to talk about retaliation or favoritism, because that still is an ongoing issue with certain condos. The favoritism, and they're pretty blatant about the favoritism. They give someone a premium parking space, and the retaliatory tactics that some people have, that is not allowed. And then again, mandatory mediation. It is a mandatory requirement that it be done. And a lot of boards are not complying with that. But we really want to make it important that, if you do mediation, you might avoid that lawsuit. The whole bottom line is we want to avoid those lawsuits. It doesn't do anybody good. It's just costing everybody money. You've got attorney fees. Then if you lose, you got to pay out the settlement, which a lot of times can be in the millions of dollars against the association. So these trainings are that's why Hawaii Council has been around since 1975. We do these trainings so that everybody can be in the know the laws, know the regulations, and keep up with it, because they do change. And then sometimes there's little tweaks to certain things, like the life safety evaluation. We found out different things as we're going forward, and we share that information so that everybody's in the know about it. So again, just to recap, our board of director training is going to be at the Oahu Country Club. It's a fabulous place. It has a great view. On the day 2, there's going to be a buffet. And there's ample parking. Don't have like the Halakoi, don't have those big stairs to climb. When we had it in February, everybody raved about the buffet. Everybody loved the buffet. It's a great venue, good AC. So we hope to have everybody there. You can register online through hawaiicouncil.org. We will only do online registrations. We won't do the paper ones anymore, but we do need the registrations to be done online. And what happens is when we download all the registrations, we will send it to the respective managing agent that is listed on the registration form, and they will confirm whether you are a board member or not. If you're not a board member, then you're going to have to pay directly to Hawaii Council the registration fee. But if you are a board member, it is paid out of the association's funds under 514B 107F. Okay, so don't be shy about that. Take advantage of that as much as you can when you can get this education that's paid for. If you're a board member, it's paid for by your association. And then once we confirm that you are a board member, then you're going to get a confirmation of your registration. And then you arrive on the day. Again, it's on Saturday, July 22nd. And then part 2 will be the following Saturday on July 29th. They will both days, they will start at 9 a.m. and they should conclude about 2:30. But it's a lot to learn, but you're going to be taking paper with you so that you have things to refer back to. So I hope to see everybody there. It is going to be a great training and a very worthwhile training. The past survey from last year, everybody raved about it. The only complaint we had was because the day was so long. It was very tiring. So that's why we broke it up into 2 days. So we hope to have everybody there again. If you're new, you really, really need to take this training. It is so vital for you to know what you're doing. Just like any job, you get training. So as a board of director, you should get training on what the duties and responsibilities is, and all the paperwork, the financials, what a reserve study is. You may not get it the first time, but eventually it'll kick in. Just like any kind of learning a new job or a new skill. Some of it can be it can be very complex. So I don't want to say it's too complex for anybody to understand. It can be very complex, but at least you kind of understand it. And then as you start actually putting it into practice, you're going to meetings, you're looking at all these paperworks, they just kind of start kicking in a little bit, and if you've already been to our board of director training before, this year is a totally different format. And remember, we also included labor laws. That was something we never did before, but the format is going to be a little bit different in the years past. So it will be beneficial if you've done it before that you come again. So that's my spiel for the board of director training. So again, we really hope to have everybody there. And as a reminder, there are several laws that have been introduced for mandatory board of director training. They didn't get passed for this year, but they will definitely come back next year. And there's probably going to be something that's going to probably be done into law that's going to require it. We're one step away from it being mandatory. And it's a lot of the state agencies that are really encouraging it to be done because of the volume of complaints. Okay. So thank you for joining us today for this edition of Condo Insider. Again, you can register online at hawaiicouncil.org. Or you can really give a shout out to your managing agent. But bottom line is they're very busy. So sometimes we always really encourage everybody to register online, because one of the big things that we get is if somebody's doing it for somebody else, it's the email typos, or we really need those emails to be accurate. Okay. So hope to see you guys all on Saturday, the 22nd. Look forward to it. Look forward to seeing everybody there. And thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for watching Think Tech Hawaii. If you like what we do, please like us and click the subscribe button on YouTube and the follow button on Vimeo. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and donate to us at thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.